Okay, so the topic of Stephen King and endings is something of a well-trodden one, and I'm going to tread it a bit further in this video, this month's book special, but I'm going to look at your least favourite Stephen King endings, and I'm going to try and work out if Stephen King is actually any good at them. So, let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram. This is a place where I talk to you about Stephen King. Now this video is a special one. It's this month's book special, taking a quick break from our walk through the movies and adaptations of Stephen King's work, because those of you who've been here a while will know I've already covered all of his books. Go and find 19 reasons to read any Stephen King book elsewhere on my channel. But I still do book specials every month, and that's what we're coming to this one. And we're talking about Stephen King endings in this one. But first, a couple of things to plug. Do go and pick up my book, The Ultimate Stephen King Quiz Book. I spent 2 years of my life writing it, so yeah, go and buy it and play Stephen King trivia whenever you like. Links in the description. Get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Also in the description, a link to sign up to my newsletter. You get my mini collection of Mirrored plus 10 Tiny Tales of Terror for free as an ebook just for signing up. And then you'll get an email from me every week with a short story from me, indie horror author recommendations, and maybe some other stuff every now and then as well. And if you like indie horror author recommendations, then check out my podcast, Constant Writers. You can either watch all of season 1 here on YouTube, or you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. It's me talking to indie horror authors about them, their work, and their relationship with Stephen King. Okay, I'm getting quicker at these. The plugging's done. Let's get into this month's book special. Now this special is a kind of a neat follow-on from last month's special, which you can watch up there, which was me giving you my 10 favourite King openings. We're going to talk about endings this time, but I didn't just want to go, oh, here are the worst Stephen King endings ever, or my least favourite endings, because I guess a lot of it is quite subjective. But it got me thinking that the topic of Stephen King and endings is something that comes up time and time again, like to the point where Stephen King has sort of memed himself with his little cameo in It Chapter 2.
Nah, I didn't like the ending.
But the thing is, I don't really subscribe to that, and I know a few other constant readers who don't as well. I actually think Stephen King is pretty good at writing endings, and sometimes while they're not satisfying, they generally serve the story really well. So, I just realised I haven't got my glasses on. No wonder I'm struggling to see. Where the fuck are my glasses? No, I have no idea. Let's carry on without my glasses, shall we? Yeah, let's do it. Hey, let's go crazy. It's a book special after all. Special, 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 so we're getting me with no glasses. Anyway, I don't subscribe to the King does bad endings idea. I think he writes good endings that serve the story. So what I wanted to do for this video instead was ask for your ideas about what his worst endings are, and just go through them and offer my take as to whether I think they're a good or a bad ending, and see if we can come to any sort of conclusion as to whether King's good at endings or not. So a while ago on my social media I put a very simple poll out there asking you to let me know your least favourite Stephen King ending, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The result of that poll was 13 different stories to talk about. Now, by nature of what we're doing here, we're talking about endings. This is going to spoil stuff. So, unusually for these lists, I'm going to tell you what's coming up in the list. I'm going to tell you in alphabetical order the stories I'm going to be talking about today, and effectively the stories that I quite well am going to ruin for you. So, the stories we're covering in alphabetical order, we've got Apt Pupil, Cell, Colorado Kid, Dreamcatcher, Gerald's Game, Institute, It, Revival, Roadwork, Secret Window, Secret Garden, Sleeping Beauties, the Tommyknockers, and Under the Dome. So if you don't want any of those to be ruined for you, then maybe don't watch this video. But otherwise, if you're as keen as I am to dig into this myth around King and endings a bit further, come on with me. Okay, so based on the results of my Snapshot survey, which was in no way scientific or anything like that, but was useful enough to generate this video, those 13 titles that I mentioned earlier, 9 of them received just 1 vote each. And to me, that definitely indicates that King doesn't necessarily have a big endings problem as such. I'm trying to figure out my argument here, but you know, for me that just comes across as, well, these are just things that individual people didn't like about those endings. It wasn't like everyone was saying these 10 books, for example. And actually, 13 out of what, nearly 80 books? That's a pretty small percentage. And 9 of them only getting 1 vote. King Train. Train! 9 of them only getting 1 vote. Again, I don't know. It just feels like this whole King bad ending things is a myth. So anyway, I'm going to look at the 9 voters. I don't feel like I've made the best argument there, but fuck, I haven't slept much. Whatever. Let's just get into them. I'm going to cover the 1 voters in alphabetical order, and let's just see what we think about whether they're a good ending or not. So the first one that came up was from different seasons, and it's Apt Pupil. I'm not having that as a bad ending. Like Todd on the rampage after Dusando's killed himself and the cops taking 5 hours to take him down. No way. It's a great ending. It's a bleak ending to a bleak as fuck story. It's spot on. Not having that. Good ending. Next up was Cell with 1 vote. Now, it is a bit of a cringe Deus Ex Machina, where we see our main man calling up his, well, the fact that he finds his son alone is a bit cringe, but then deciding that he's going to stick the phone to Johnny's ear again to try and reset his brain. And it's something that King has later gone on to suggest was a happy ending for Clay and his son. I mean, it's not a great ending. I don't think it's a terrible ending. And actually, for me, it's quite blessed relief because it means that this book is over. So, for me, it's an okay ending. Could have been better, sure, but this book was wildly running out of ideas long before we got to the ending. So I think it was always going to be a bit of a ending. Next up with 1 vote was The Colorado Kid. The ending that doesn't offer any solutions or answers at all. No. That is a perfect fucking ending for this story. It does not need to be anything else. We do not need the answers. That is the whole point of this story. And if the ending were any different, that would be a bad ending. The ending as it is, good ending. Okay, next up is Dreamcatcher. So I can see why this one would come in as a bad ending thing. I mean, the magical guy with learning difficulties who sacrifices himself to save the entire world, yeah, kind of cringy and cheesy. But the ending of the book is better than the ending of the movie. And the fact that this book got written, let alone finished, is something of a minor miracle because of how important it was in King's own personal recovery after being hit by the minivan. But I mean, objectively speaking, yeah, it is a bit of a dud ending. Of all the ones we've mentioned so far, it's the first one I'd be comfortable saying is a bad ending. So yeah, maybe we'll have that. Sorry, Emily. So next up was Gerald's Game. Interesting one. So let's work it through. I can see why it would come up. Like the idea that, well, the fact that we get confirmation that the Moonlight Man was not this creepy supernatural figment of Jesse's imagination, but was actually a real serial killer, sicko deprived freak called Raymond Joubert. Was that cheesy? Yeah. Was the courtroom scene also cheesy and a bit cringe? Yeah. Did that make it a bad ending? No. I think this is a great example of King writing an ending that suits and fits the story. I can totally see why people necessarily wouldn't like the ending, and I'm not saying it's a brilliant ending by any means. I think it works really well for the story. I found it really satisfying seeing and knowing that Jessie got some recovery and got past her trauma and got some closure on it. And I actually found it more unsettling that the Moonlight Man space cowboy dude was real. And I kind of liked the empowerment Jessie got in the courtroom as well. So for me, it worked. And like I say, I think it was a great ending for the story. It's definitely not a bad ending. Not in my opinion anyway. Okay, next up was the Institute, where we sort of basically are left with the sense that all of that work that the kids went through didn't really change anything, and that the Institute can just pick up where it left off, and those kids can't really do anything and nobody will believe them anyway. And it sort of tries to make you feel like it was all in vain. But actually, I think we know better. It was fine. It's a fine ending for a fine story. It serves the story well. Yeah, it was kind of middling all across, like this book, really. Not a bad ending, though. Okay, next up was It. So I guess if we're talking about the very ending, the weird bike ride with Bill and Audra to try and get her out of that trance and unlock her memories and allow them to leave Derry and move on with their lives, is kind of weird. But it sort of worked for me. I think the thing with this one, after such an epic fucking story and a huge battle with Pennywise that leaves people dead and leaves places destroyed and is just full on spectacular, you're never really going to top that. So something a bit different, something a bit softer, I think actually works. Again, I think it works well for this book. Yeah, I can see it's not the best ending, but to be honest, there's so much brilliance in this book up to that I can forgive the last chapter not being quite as 10 out of 10 as everything else, because like I say, I think it needs some sort of balance for the rest of the book, and I was fine with it. So I definitely wouldn't say it's a bad ending either. So seems so far we've only found one bad one. So it seems so far King can do endings. So next up from the Bachman books was Roadwork. I mean, the ending of Roadwork, apart from the old scene, the ending of Roadwork is literally the most interesting part of the book. So I'm not having that. No way. And finally, from the one voters, we have the Tommyknockers. Now again, this one is a bit of a dud. And I mean, it's aliens again. I wonder if that is perhaps King's Achilles heel. But again, I found stuff in here to like. You know, I think it was okay. And I think seeing Guard have a chance to actually redeem himself and not be such a dick, that was quite satisfying. And the start and end of this book are really, really strong. It's the middle for me that sucks in Tommyknockers. So actually coming out of that long slug in the middle, the ending feels like a good ending. So yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a bad ending at all. But King and Aliens seems to be a bad mix. Okay, we've got a couple with 2 votes, again, taking them in alphabetical order. We're starting off with Revival. I mean, fuck off. It's one of the best endings King's ever written. It's certainly one of the bleakest endings he's ever written. Probably the scariest ending he's written since Pet Sematary. And again, fuck off. Absolutely not. This is a terrific ending. Fuck off. So the other one with 2 votes was From 4 Past Midnight was Secret Window, Secret Garden. Or is it Secret Garden, Secret Window? I've written Secret Window, Secret Garden, so let's go with that. I think the problem here is that the twist in the story, that old Mort Rainey and his person pursuing him for plagiarism was actually just all Mort at the same time, and it was him doing all the killings and stuff. I think people's complaint is that the twist was blindingly fucking obvious, and sure it was, but that does also do a bit of a disservice to the written version of this story, because somewhat randomly King does throw in the appearance of the hat and the note and stuff, which, I don't know, it's a bit of ambiguity that makes it a little more interesting, certainly the movie version. It's not as black and white as the movie version. So I can see why people think this is a bad ending, although I would argue that take of the twist being so obvious is not really a criticism of the ending, it's more a criticism of the second half of the story, really, or at least the final act. I suppose that is the ending. I'm rambling now anyway. Fuck it. I don't think it's a bad ending, but I'm very aware that I have a soft spot for this story. So that might be clouding my judgment. So yeah, okay, let's allow that one as a bad ending, even if I don't necessarily agree. So the penultimate one we're going to talk about had 3 votes, and that was Sleeping Beauties, the book that he co-wrote with his second son, Owen. Now for me, I mean, it's not difficult based on this book, but the ending was one of the better parts of this book for me. I thought it was interesting seeing how things had changed when the women came back to the world, seeing how relationships had changed and how things might pan out in the future. And I also really liked the sort of hint that Eve was still around in some form. I got a sense of a shift in power a shift in emphasis, and a shift in what was important for those characters' lives. And I thought that was really powerful as an ending. Again, I wonder whether the thoughts about this one being a bad ending were as much as just people not liking this book in general. But no, I don't think it was bad. I certainly don't think it was as bad as some of the other parts of the book. Let's put it that way. But hands down, the ultimate winner, with almost half of the votes cast, and way, way more than any of the other books there, was Under the Dome. And it's King and Aliens again, isn't it? I mean, look, as I said in my 19 reasons for this one, I acknowledged the ending in that video there. And I think I said there that basically any form of ending for this was going to be a bit of a letdown. You've got 800 odd pages of wild 100-mile-an-hour sort of throwback to 70s Cocaine King, where it's all going off and it's all exciting and it's all fucking happening. It has to end somehow, and that's always going to be a bit of a sort of letdown. I think the complaints here are that not necessarily that it was aliens, but they were really lame aliens, and I can see that. And the fact that the humans got out of it just by asking them really nicely, "Oh, please stop killing us." And yeah, when I do an impression like that, it's not the best ending, is it? I'll allow it as an ending that did not land and did not stick. And I think the fact that this is the one that people came back to, that shows, yes, let's say Under the Dome, King fucked the ending of that. But he's got like 77 other books. So in terms of, can he write endings? Yeah, he fucking can. Are they bad endings? No, most of them are at least great endings for the story, and quite a lot of them I think are really satisfying endings, full stop. I mean, stuff like Pet Sematary, The Dead Zone, fucking Carrie, fucking Revival that I mentioned earlier, all terrific endings. And The Dark Tower as well. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but perfect ending, I think. So, I think what have we learned here? Stephen King can do endings. Okay, there we go. Some thoughts on Stephen King's endings. Maybe he just needs to avoid aliens. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'm on Instagram at Dave Musson, or you can drop something in the comments. I'd love to know your least favourite ending. Your least favourite, not your favourite, your least favourite ending for Stephen King. And let me know whether you think King's endings are any good. Some things to plug before you go. The Constant Writers podcast, I mentioned it earlier. Do check it out. It's really fucking good, if I say so myself. Also really fucking good, if I say so myself, is the Ultimate Stephen King quiz book, which I spent 2 years of my life writing. Go and pick it up. You can do Stephen King trivia whenever you like. And sign up to my mailing list. You'll get this as an ebook for free just for signing up, and you'll get a lovely email from me once a week. So what's not to like about that? Nothing. There isn't anything not to like. I mean, I've lost track of how many negatives. It's all a good thing, okay? Right, we're going to come back soon, and we're going to be back on the movie trail. I need to stop talking because I am talking shit. Thanks for watching. See you later.